Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello listener, it's Brady here, and before we get stuck into the West Brom preview talking about the return of Carlos Gorman and boo if you're Tom Bradshaw, or if you're one of us who are like, oh, I wish you were still around, we'll get stuck into that. But before we do, we spoke to Beth Stanfield. So Beth Stanfield is one of the players for the Huddersfield Town Women's team. The reason we've done so is you may have seen that several Huddersfield Town Women players spoke out on International Women's Day against the men's club. They said that the bare minimum isn't enough anymore, and they've called for the men's team to increase the support of the women's team to ensure the club isn't further left behind their league rivals. This comes after the news that Stoke City, who are a team in Huddersfield Town League, have pledged to increase more money. You know, there's more funding in the women's game. So we caught up with Beth earlier to chat to her to find out what the situation is and what we can do as fans of the club to support her. And here's what she had to say. Hi Beth, thanks for speaking to us. So we saw your tweet about the men's team inviting you all down to the Bristol City game. However, following their tweet, we saw a few of the players speak out against the men's club and their lack of support and doing the bare minimum. Can you explain to those people who didn't see the tweets what the situation is currently?
Hiya, yeah, thanks for having me on. So basically, to put it into context, the club invited us down on Tuesday to the Bristol City game, and it was the designated Her Game 2 fixture. So Her Game 2 is like a fan-led campaign, and the aim of that is to raise awareness of sexism in football. And it's definitely still needed, and definitely important, judging by some of the replies I got on Twitter from men yesterday. But essentially, I tweeted saying that it felt like a token gesture and that we're a bit frustrated with the lack of support that we're getting from the club compared to other clubs in our league. So on the same day, Derby and Stoke both announced that they were putting more resource into their women's team. And we at Huddersfield are not seeing anything like that. So I think that's what I mean by a token gesture, is that it makes out that they do give us a lot of support, but it's a bit misleading in that sense because we don't see that. So yeah, that's what I meant by that. And I think seeing Stoke and Derby announce those things just is what made us kind of think, well, now's the time to say something, you know?
And several of your teammates have also voiced their frustration with the men's club and their lack of support to the women's team. Can we ask what's prompted the response of the team to speak out now?
I think it's been building for a while. It's not just something that's happened overnight or as a result of Tuesday or whatever. Obviously, this year especially, we've seen more clubs commit more resource to their women's team, and that's probably off the back of the Lionesses' success in the summer. So especially I think Nottingham Forest and Burnley were way ahead of it really, in announcing they're more like one club and unifying the clubs and things like that. And then I think on Wednesday, on International Women's Day, we saw Derby and Stoke announce that they're going to be funding their women's teams more going forward. So I think that was probably what made us think the time is now, you know. And if you want to see change, you're going to have to do something about it. You're going to have to shout about it, highlight issues, demand change in some cases. I think a good example is the Lionesses, where they wrote that letter to the government, and they got their result again on International Women's Day, where they've said they'll increase PE hours and they'll allow girls and boys the same opportunities to access the same sports in PE in school. So that's also pretty inspiring as well. So I just think, why, you know, if not now, then when? And hopefully something good will come of it. Whether it's just a few more fans come down to our games after seeing these tweets, or whether it's the club see them and want to meet and we can set a plan moving forward, whatever it may be, we just felt like we had to say something.
And you mentioned that the bare minimum isn't enough anymore. For those who are unaware of the situation, can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yeah, so Huddersfield Town Women is a club that's basically run by volunteers, and the players pay annual subs to play football for Huddersfield Town Women. A lot of us are able to get individual sponsors that can cover that, but if you can't, then obviously you've got to pay that yourself. We also don't get our training and playing kit for free, so the women's team pay towards that. I'm not sure exactly how much. We get to use the training facilities for training, but we don't get to play there, or Huddersfield don't provide us with like a home ground as such. We play at a local non-league club, Shelley FC. So yeah, that is essentially what we get. So I think a lot of people maybe think that we get paid, or that we get expenses, but we don't. We actually pay to play for Huddersfield Town Women. So I think for a club of its stature, I don't think that's good enough, to be honest, anymore. Certainly other teams in our league don't, and are progressing way past us. Even teams, like I said, below us in lower leagues are doing way more than Huddersfield are for us at the moment. So yeah, it's just a bit frustrating. I think another thing to mention is that we usually would get to play at the John Smith Stadium once a year, but that's not happened this season. I'm not sure why. But yeah, that's another thing that we obviously look forward to, and yeah, that's not happened this year either. So that's, and again, another frustration, especially when you see teams like Newcastle packing out St James's Park. I'm not saying we'll do that, but when you look at teams below us who are able to facilitate their women's team better than we can, obviously it's a bit frustrating. It's super inspiring seeing Newcastle do that, and so yeah, I think that's why we then look at Huddersfield and go, well, what are you doing for us?
What would you like to see from the men's team in regards to the support for the club? People always talk about finances, but we imagine it's more than just money that you're talking about here. It's a lot of other things too.
Yeah, obviously finance is a massive part of it, and that would really help. Obviously, like I've mentioned, other clubs in our league are able to pay players, and we're in a position where we're losing players now because they can go and get paid at other clubs in our league. Even if they wanted to, they could drop down a league and get paid. So to be able to continue and kind of get to where we want to be, we are going to struggle if we don't have that financial backing, because players are going to go to other clubs where they can get paid, where they can get access to better facilities or more training hours, things like that. So yeah, that obviously is a massive part. But I do think there are other things that can be done that don't require a big kind of financial input that can help us like now and in the long run. So things like social media, I think, is a massive one. Eventually unifying the social media would be great, but even just now sharing our tweets more, sharing our results, our fixtures, highlights, having a page on the website that's got up-to-date information, maybe having our Twitter handle in the bio, like all these. I think that's a very easy win for us, because I think our Twitter profile has maybe like 5,000 followers. What's Huddersfield Town's got? Probably 50,000, maybe more. So just getting that reach and the word out there would help massively. Another thing could be, obviously we train at the training ground already. Could we access a classroom to do analysis? Like currently we do it in the porter cabin changing rooms before a session. We all crammed around a TV screen that the manager's had to source himself. Again, with training, can we access the gym? Like, can we do an extra S&C session? Can players who are coming back from an injury go in there and do rehab whilst we're out on the pitch? Like, I do think there's things like that could be done to help improve it. That'll help us now and in the future. So yeah, like I said, finance is a massive part of it, and obviously that's the main kind of one, but there are other things that can be done. Again, another thing, on Tuesday at the game, we had 2 players on the front of the programme that don't play for us anymore. Like, that's such a small thing that has obviously, for us, made a big impact. We looked at that and went, it feels like they don't really care about us. Like, that's such an easy thing to get correct. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating. And I think it just highlights the lack of a link or the lack of like cohesion between the two teams, where we are definitely operating as two separate clubs, and we want it to become more of this one club ethos that a lot of clubs are doing now. But yeah, like I said, I think there are a lot of things that can be done that are easy wins, that don't require a massive financial input, that would improve things and help us on the way to get where we want to be.
Finally, is there anything as supporters of Huddersfield Town that we can do to help or support the club and the women's players?
Yeah, obviously come and support us if you can. Come down to a home game. They're on Sunday, so they shouldn't clash with any men's fixtures. If you're not able to get down to a game, then sharing stuff on social media, telling people about us would be great as well. If you're in a position to help us out financially, whether you work for a local business or you own a local business, maybe have a think about sponsoring a player or sponsoring the club in some way, that would be a massive help towards running the club and ensuring the future of the club as well. But yeah, I think if you can get down to a game and show your support for us, that would be amazing. Obviously, we are Huddersfield Town, we are one club, and it'd be great to get your support on a Sunday when we're playing at home. And away, if you're really keen and you enjoy it, that would be amazing.
Do you know what's better than a loss? A draw. Yes, it's got to that point in the season. It's the warm-up, episode 104. It's Brady. We're previewing the West Brom game, and Francine Gorman joins me this evening. No, Tom, I hear you cry, dear listener. Well, he's failed a late fitness test, but he assures me he's fit and available for the next one. He had something to say about that as well, and here's what Tom had to say to you all, you lovely listeners, you. There we go. But Francine, anyway, welcome. You are actually here. Welcome back to the warm-up. It's been a while. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I'm football-wise, I'm in a less happy mood than the last time I was talking to you. I think we were guessing where we were going to finish in the playoff race last time I was on, and it's a slightly different scenario right now. So, yeah, but I'm well. Thank you very much.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And when anyone's not been on for a while, I'm guessing it's not going to be positive. But what have you kind of made of everything? Are you like me? Are you like, I just can't believe how much has changed in a short space of time?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing's pretty jading, isn't it? Like, it's quite difficult to stay hopeful, and it's quite difficult to stay engaged as well. I think when Warnock came back, that gave everyone a much needed lift, and there's trickles of that still going on now, despite the fact that we've had a real mixed bag of results so far. But yeah, it's just deflating. And now we're getting to that point where we're comparing to where we were last year, and it's just an absolute world apart, isn't it? So, especially with feels a bit like we're going to be seeing an ex-boyfriend at the weekend, going to West Brom and seeing Carla. Yeah, just to think where we could have been had he stuck with us, had we stuck with him last season, and the state that we're in now. Yeah, it's just a bit painful.
It is, and I'm gonna add to your pain further, because I think this has been really interesting. One of the things I've noticed throughout the season about Carlos, obviously when he left, it's kind of like we've gone through all the stages. We were like, gutted that he's left. What's the club doing? Then there was a lot of anger, and there appears to be a lot of acceptance. Where do you kind of stand with it all now that the dust has settled and we've seen how the season's panned out? Do you blame Carlos for the mess, or is it a case of we should have backed him? Really, what he said is true.
I think if what he said is true, then we should have absolutely backed him. Like, it would have saved us so much heartache, for one thing, but an awful lot of money and a lot of just wasted time that we as a club in general have had to spend hunting down new managers, sorting out the back room, getting everything sorted out. But got to bear in mind as well that how many people have we dealt with this season? So it was a bit of pre-season with Carlos, then we went to Danny, then Foz, and we've had Chicho in the middle, got Neil Warnock now. So that's 4 managers that people have had to get used to and had to change their techniques and their training to suit. And the players I just feel have been massively messed about throughout this entire process. And, not to say that they haven't been working with good people. I think loads of them will be really chuffed to be working with Neil Warnock now. Who thought that was going to happen? But we've also got like really young players that are very much in development at the minute, and to be chopping and changing and constantly asking different things of everybody all the time, I think it can't be a nice situation. It must have been really stressful for them. But that's nothing to do with your question. Sorry, that's just like what's been on my mind. But with Carlos, I don't blame him. Like if you're not getting backed by your owners, then why would you stay somewhere? And I think the fact that he left so close to the start of the season means that it can't have been on very good terms. No strategic manager in their right mind would give it that amount of time. No manager wants to be going to a new club with only 2 weeks to get everybody prepped and ready for the season. So yeah, I think there was definitely some falling out. There was definitely a path being laid out by a manager that was completely unsupported in other directions. And I think, it's to our own detriment that we let him go and that we didn't support him further than we did. I just can't, it doesn't really bear thinking about where we could have been had we given him another season. And players we might have kept hold of, players that aren't playing now that we might have kept hold of.
It's sad to see a fellow ginger suffering. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
I just I'm with you, and like I think this is probably what this podcast is going to be for the rest of the season. I think it probably is going to be a bit of group therapy because it looks like we're heading to the third tier of English football, which is sad to say. But we did do a little poll last night on the Twitter account, and we asked you all, the listeners, how you wanted this podcast to go, and whether you wanted it to be a normal pod, whether you wanted it to be a bit of fun, a bit silly, or just have a moan. And it was neck and neck, to be honest, between moaning and being silly. So we're going to do a little bit of both today. So we've had a little bit of a moan. We're going to be silly later on. But let's talk about the game in question. So it's the West Brom match. So we've touched on Carlos there. That's going to be an interesting one. But West Brom, they're ninth on the table on 51 points, and they're actually 4 points off the playoff places. Who's the team in sixth place? Oh, it's Norwich with another former Huddersfield Town manager.
Who are playing next week? It's just Waggy's going to hurt more than Carlos, I think.
It's like that. It's like that Simpsons meme where Maggie's looking at she's about to get christened, and she looks at Homer and Bart and Lisa in the swamp, and then the Flanders family. That's what it feels like as a Town fan. We're Homer in the ditch. But yeah, anyway, nice Simpson reference for you there. How old's that? Like 20 years? So nice and topical reference for you there. But West Brom, their last 6 games, they've won just twice. So you're like, okay, not playing a team at the best. Look to their home record. They're the second best team in the league in the last 10 matches. They've won 8 and they've lost just once, and that was to Sheffield United. Yeah, Francine, we touched on Carlos. This season hasn't been great. We can talk about how bad Town have been. But for anything we can grab, clutch at straws. Do you think they want to get one over on him? Given how he left, I know you said we don't, we can't blame him for what's going on, but I feel like if you were a player, you'd be disappointed and you'd want to, if not get back at him, you'd want to prove, that you still had something to offer. Could you see that happening?
I hope so. I'd like to think that they want to prove what they've got, prove what they can do, rather than going in with revenge in their eyes necessarily. But I mean, the home record's quite intimidating, but I think it is really interesting looking at their last 6 fixtures, because we are actually their last 6 results. We're on a par with them results wise. They have, apart from they have 1 win to 1 loss that we've had, but otherwise same point. So I think if we look at that, and if the players are going into the game with that mentality, then we're all right. We've got a lot of injuries. They've also got a lot of injuries. It's a really, really rough part of the season. So they're not on their greatest form at the minute, whereas we're absolutely all over the place. So I think we could be the live wires that turn up, and we have a little bit of that fire because we want to prove to the old gaffer that we've got it all going on, and we're, look what you could have had. I hope that's what they're going to do. But yeah, I think it's of any time of the season, now is probably the best time to be playing them. They're kind of at their most vulnerable at the minute. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm heading up, so I'm hoping that we're gonna show up, do something good.
Nice. Will you? Well, Tom said he would boo Carlos if he saw him. I'm assuming you would not boo Carlos. You're not going to boo him on Saturday.
I'm not a booing kind of gal.
There.
Really, unless it's Leeds, and then I'll just boo straight over the road at him. But no, I'm not gonna boo an ex-manager. He did brilliant things for us. It just ended on a really sour note. But yeah, I wouldn't boo him.
There you go. I feel like that's a thing to add to your Twitter, but I'm not a booing gal. So very good. Yeah, no, for me, I'm not really sure how I see this one going. I think it could go either way. I was, the game happened last night, and not a lot to talk about, but I thought Vasilic made some really good saves, and we could have arguably been 3-0 down if he wasn't on form at half time, and we could have won it at the end. It just felt a bit flat. So yeah, I don't know. There is part of me that thinks Warnock will want to prove something against Carlos, even weirdly, just because I feel like we talk about old school managers and old-fashioned managers, but I think Warnock would love to get one up on a new, young, innovative manager. Prove that.
I think absolutely, yeah. I think you're right, and I think he's good at winding people up. Is Warnock. It's one of the things that we love the most about him. But I think that he's going to be really good at riling the players up ahead of this game, and maybe just giving them sort of peppering it with a little bit of that vengeance that you were talking about earlier. Yeah. So I think from on the managerial side, I think we've got a good person in place to be getting the players in the right frame of mind for this fixture. But yeah, we're just so inconsistent at the minute that I just don't know what's going to happen. I remain hopeful.
I like it. You're giving me a lot more hope than I had coming into this recording. I've got to be honest.
Oh, good. Maybe I should do the 3-game talk then. Just go in and
yeah. I mean,
co-pilot with Neil.
Yeah, I like it. I could see that happening. To be fair, I saw Ian Wright gave Arsenal Women a bit of a Any Given Sunday speech, and apparently they really loved it. And they won against Chelsea in the Conti Cup. So who knows? Maybe it's that time. it's the hype speech time. But yeah, Tom. Anyway, he's not here, but he did speak to a West Brom fan before the game. I'm sure he wanted to ask him a few questions about Carlos, but. You're going to hear Tom's chat with the West Brom podcast now, and here's what they had to say.
We've lost to a pub side. We've literally lost to a pub side.
Hi mate, thanks for joining us on the podcast. So, how's your season going?
To be honest, Albion's season has been a bit of a roller coaster. We started off obviously under Steve Bruce, and might surprise you to hear we weren't actually playing too badly, but we just couldn't win games whatsoever. I remember we battered Watford on the second or third game, drew at Middlesbrough, battered Blackburn away, lost. Eventually, I think the lack of confidence started to seek in, and those performances were getting worse, but the results were also staying the same. Well, all getting worse and becoming losses. Steve Bruce didn't help himself. He picked a goalkeeper who. I don't even know how to put his lack of ability into words. He Button fingers, I like to call him, David Button. But yeah, and eventually it all got toxic, and Steve Bruce had to go. And Carlos comes in and absolutely changes it, implements philosophy, fitness. He does stuff that you'd expect a manager to do, but Steve Bruce wasn't doing it. And it showed that on paper the quality's there, and Corberan's managed to get a tune out of them, which is great. Also, from October to January, we're flying. Then, from the end of January, it's been a bit difficult. We lost Phillips to injury, Alex Palmer to injury, two big players in our revival. Albrighton and Chalabar, the two January signings, didn't really hit the ground running. And we've just lost that bit of fluency, and there's been a few mistakes from everyone involved, so players, manager, which is bound to happen at some point. Do I think we'll get the playoffs? No, don't think we will. Think we'll miss out. I just think this is nothing. No blame of Corberan's. I mean, I know he's got us into the playoffs, but had he been in charge from the start of the season, I'm sure we'd be in there. I just think now there's teams that have given themselves a better platform and will manage to hold on. So you're looking at one guaranteed place for Middlesbrough, then Watford, Luton and Millwall. I think it's probably like a one-team shootout between Watford, Albion and Norwich maybe. So there's a chance, but I've got a feeling Norwich might sneak in there, to be honest.
Who's a standout player for you so far?
Form players at the moment. If you answered this at the start of January or midway through, before this sort of little report on a form snuck in, I could probably say any player on the park, and from the goalkeeper to the striker, really. However, now we've lost Alex Palmer, who was incredible in goal. We've lost Thomas Asante. We've lost Matt Phillips. So some really important players there. I think you'd probably look to Jed Wallace and say he's a key player, although I don't think he's been at his best the last couple of games. Probably most consistent player is probably Yokuslu. I just think he's just a linchpin in midfield. Rarely puts a foot wrong. I like John Swift. I really like John Swift, and I think his influence is growing on games. Hopefully that continues. And Daryl DK is in really good form as well at 3-3, so it'd be good to see him carry that on Saturday.
And what's your score prediction against Town?
My prediction for Saturday is 1-0 Huddersfield. I think it'll be a late goal from a set piece. I think we'll probably have about 100 billion shots and not even put one on target, let alone score. And I think Warnock will come back to the Hawthorns for one final time, where he likes to wind us up and come away with the scrappiest of wins, the very scrappiest of wins. However, I hope that's not true.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so Tom's had a catch up with them. What we'll do now is we'll take a break and then we'll come back and we'll do the mailbag. Okay, so I said earlier there was going to be a bit of silliness in this podcast. It's the mailbag time. It's your questions that are going to bring it. So
You've got mail.
First question is from Danny Smith. He asks, and I'm not sure if you've had these yet, Francine. I've not either. Danny Smith asked the verdict on the roast potatoes offering in the ground. So I saw them originally. You had them?
I found $1, the mythical roast potatoes. Yeah, I found $1. Had them.
Good.
They were actually good. Yeah, you got loads, decent portion. Yeah, they were good. Bit cold.
Bit cold. Oh, okay.
Bit cold. I didn't dare try the gravy because I can't have any gluten. I have to be on a very strict diet. But my neighbours tried the gluten gravy and they thought it was really delicious. So 10 out of 10 on the gravy from their friend. I'd give the potatoes a solid 7 out of 10.
Oh, good. I'm pleased because I've not had them yet. I saw them on Footy Scram and I was like, I've never seen these in my life. And then at the Coventry game, I saw a sign offering them, so I'll have to try them. But it looks good. I just, to be honest, I thought they were a bit of a myth, too good to be true, but clearly not.
Yeah,
clearly you've had them.
I thought they were the unicorn of snacks in the stand, because I've asked 1,000 times and it's become such a thing. Me and my friends going up to the bar and being potatoes, and I'm like, no. Like, right, okay. But then this guy got him on Twitter and we were like, oh, getting him out for him, are we? Mashed potatoes and the brisket gravy, but yeah, no, Kill in the Bank supplied, and it was good. It was worth it, worth the wait.
Well, I'm glad, because I thought we were just gonna. I'm glad someone's had them, so I was not expecting that. That's good. That's good. I will be trying them next game for sure. Okay, we'll carry on with the silly questions. I did get a proper one, boo. But I will ask this. This from Alex. There seems to be a food theme this week, actually, looking at all the questions. But Alex asks, do you guys prefer strawberry or blackcurrant jam? I like blackcurrant jam. I don't mind strawberry, but I think I'd probably go blackcurrant. But I don't have that much jam. Francine, what about you?
Whoa, do we mean like if you could only have one jam for the rest of your life, or which one that you
I think it's just which you prefer. Yeah.
I'm gonna go blackcurrant as well. I like blackcurrant, not blackberry. Blackcurrant jam, Ribena flavored jam. That's what I'm after.
Perfect.
Yeah, great. But it depends on the situation, you know. If you're having a scone, you might want to have a bit of straw. I wouldn't put blackcurrant jam on a scone.
Yeah. Do you get funny about the cream scone situation? Cream jam? I don't think it matters, does it? You're eating it. There's no preference.
I just think for like scientific purposes, it's easier to put jam. The jam sticks the cream to the scone, so that's the way that I would do it. I know that that's a very divisive comment for many people, but yeah, I just don't understand how logistically it works. If you just dribble, you have to have really runny, dribbly jam if you're going to do it otherwise, and not how I like my jam.
The important questions are getting answered tonight on this podcast. Don't say we don't look after you. Another food-related one. This is from Mark Harrison. He asks, who would make the best soufflé out of Jonathan Hogg and Matty Pearson? I think Jonathan Hogg's an experienced guy. He's been around. He's been through a lot of managers, seen a lot of new styles. And what I would say, you know, doing this podcast and seeing Jonathan Hogg is you can never fully write him off. I thought he wouldn't do well under Carlos, and he did pretty well. He's had a bad couple of games, but I think you can never write him off. So I'm going to go Jonathan Hogg. I think he would make the best soufflé. He might get it wrong, but I think over time he'd surely, slowly and surely improve. What about you, Francine?
1000% Jonathan Hogg, for multiple reasons. He's got solid arms on him, so he'd be really good at whisking and getting all of the air that you need to make a successful soufflé. I love that this is a question, by the way.
Yeah.
Also, he's like, I just think he's so fixated on things as well that he'd make 100 soufflés until he made the perfect one. So you know that he'll just keep going until he can present you with the perfect soufflé. Matty Pearson, I think he'd just get a bit bored halfway through, or he wouldn't butter his ramekins thoroughly, you know, something like that. So yeah, no, I think Jonathan Hogg. It wouldn't surprise me if you like hear from him one day and he's like, actually, yeah, I do. I'm making incredible soufflé.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Stephen Chicken, if you are listening to this one, you know what your next question at the press conference is. You can thank Mark for that one. Okay, speaking of Hogg, Bryony, hi Bryony. We'll have you back on the pod soon, I'm sure. But Bryony asks, who do you reckon wins in a fight? 1 hog-sized duck or 10 duck-sized hogs? I'll let you go first. Actually, Francine, giving me time to think because much to weigh up there.
Right, 1 hog-sized duck. Jonathan hog-sized duck or animal hog-sized duck?
1 hog-sized duck, so it's a duck the size of Jonathan Hogg. Jonathan Hogg isn't the tallest either, actually, as well. Or 10 duck-sized hogs, so mini hogs. Right, that is a phrase.
I'm gonna go for 1 hog-sized duck because that'd be like 1 very hench, sturdy duck. There'd be a lot of power in that duck.
Yeah, got
10
to think
small,
about the
10,
wings
yeah,
as
10
well.
smaller, yeah. 10 smaller ones, I think, manageable. We could deal with that. But one big one, I'd be concerned.
Yeah,
Wouldn't want to come across that in a dark alley.
I think you'd be terrified as well because it'd be so like you wouldn't expect to see a duck that big. So I think that's
No.
it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm leaning towards 10 duck-sized hogs because I think it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Like Jonathan Hogg's, I won't mess with him. So I know ducks aren't small either. They're like it's not like we're talking about mice here. So
Yeah.
I think 10 of them. That's a scary fight. If I don't know how they're attacking me. Hang on. No, hang on. We're talking about this, aren't we? They're not talking about attacking me. We're talking about who wins in a fight out of them.
Oh, against each other, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're 10 duck-sized hogs. I think they're committed. They're used to working in a team, following instructions. Can get stuck in as well. Not afraid to go in where it hurts. So yeah, I think actually 10 duck-sized hogs.
I agree with you. Yeah, it'd just be snapping all over the place, relentless. Yeah. I agree. But the one that I would least like to meet in person would be a hog-sized duck.
What if you go to the what if you say the Hawthorns just a giant duck, like it's at the other end of the stand,
It really wouldn't surprise me, the stuff I've seen in that ground. There's a man walking around dressed as a boiler, so why would a life-size duck weird me out?
My girlfriend supports West Brom and she's not into football, but the reason she does is because we were in a cafe, like it was chucking it down the first going out, and she picked West Brom purely for the boiler mascot. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair enough. It's a solid mascot.
It's the best mascot. I mean, I do love Terry. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And we've still not seen Tilly actually. I think we talked about this on a previous episode, but don't know where she's gone.
Yeah, no, I think we need to start calling in some people to track down Tilly.
Yeah.
Get a Twitter campaign going. It's been ages. I don't know where she's gone. Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, club, we're putting out a call. Where's Tilly? Find Tilly. That's the new hashtag. Find Tilly. There we go.
Hashtag find Tilly. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Everything was going so well when Tilly was there.
I'm imagining like the Charlie, It's Always Sunny, like the red bands of string connecting everything and connecting Tilly to the loss of form. Yeah, I like it. Maybe an athletic long read. Cool. So last question. This was actually a serious one, which is from F. Phillips. They ask, which players can you see leaving us when we get relegated? It's not done yet. It's not done yet. It's not official yet. But to be honest, loads of people leave when you get relegated. I think it would quite a few. I think I saw today Elliot Jackson, who's the Rovers reporter, who you guys will have heard on the pod a couple of times. He got quite a few questions about Sorba Thomas doing very well at Blackburn, but there is no clause to buy him, but I think they'd be interested given how he's started quite well there. So I think Sorba would go. I think Lee Nichols would unfortunately go. The only reason I could see him maybe staying if we're relegated is if, he's not fit enough in time for the end of the August window. That's the only way I could see it. I think Jordan Rhodes would probably go. Danny Ward. I don't know. Quite a few. I think Heller could be off. I can't. I think it's more about who stays really. But Francine, who would you see leaving?
I completely agree. I think the majority of the senior level players that we have would be off because it's such a difference, isn't it? Like getting relegated to the Championship, you're still in it. There's the chance of getting into the playoffs. Building back up quickly. Playing top tier competitive football, and the Championship is still a ridiculously tough league. It's still super competitive. It's really exciting. There's still plenty of money in it, but as soon as you get to League One, completely different world, and it is such a rough league to get out of as well. Like, you look at the likes of Sheffield Wednesday dipping down, and you're like, oh yeah, we'll see them again next season, but you don't. Like, it's so hard to get out of that. So I think, oh no, I'm clinging on until we're told that mathematically we're down. I'm really clinging on to some kind of like hope to keep us up, because it's not just the football that changes, it's everything around the club's infrastructure that changes at that point. And it's a really tough position for us to be in, especially when we've got an owner that's trying to sell the club at the minute. You know, buying League One clubs, the finances are completely different to Championship clubs, and what position is that going to leave us in when that eventually happens? And yeah, it's a real, I'm just a bit worried about the kind of overall safety of Huddersfield Town in general if we dip down. And I think that, you know, the players, we haven't given the players very much to stay for at the minute. You know, we've got a manager that's with us until the end of the season. Like, we'll likely be in League One next season, even though I'm clinging on. But what's that season going to look like? You know, it's not like we're stepping into League One and we've got this whole structure and this whole plan and this whole future in front of us and in place. We've not got anything. We don't know who's going to be the owner. We don't know who's going to be the manager. We don't know who's going to be playing for us. It's just a complete unknown. And if I was a player playing for Town at the minute, I'd want out at the end of the season. I can't see, especially the young players, you know, you don't necessarily see career prospects in that situation. So why would you stick it out if you're given an option to go elsewhere for a bit?
No, you're right.
And I can't see Sauber coming back ever.
No, I think
he's been with us, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for ringing for that. But yeah, like, no, I'm with you. I think, yeah, I think a lot will leave, and you're right. It's we don't want to talk about it, although it's looking likely. But yeah, everything changes. Like you say, it's not like we've got a nice foundation to bounce back in. Like, we don't know who the owner, the manager, the playing squad's going to be. It's worrying times. I think you know, I saw, again, people will probably be like, oh, shut up talking about Scott High, but you know, Scott High got a lot of criticism against Coventry, which I thought was unfair. You know, and to be honest, if those are the type of players who'll stay, you know, like, so Scott High, Jaheim Headley, like, if a club doesn't come for them, you know, if they want regular football, they're the type of players who are going to have to, you know, get behind and back. And I don't know, it's easy to say, you know, we've got a lot of young, exciting players, but big clubs with bigger budgets are probably going to poach, you know, have a good chance of poaching them. But if they do stay and we have a good core and like maybe a good manager, I saw, interestingly, I saw Liam Richardson, the ex-Wigan manager, was there last night, tweeted about that. So, don't know, you know, I'm not saying this is like I know anything, you know, or any background or any, you know, secret gossip, but someone like that would give me confidence. You know, took over Wigan in a similar situation where they got relegated and like got them out of that league. So yeah, like, Liam, I'm assuming you didn't come to Town for to watch the good football we've been playing. So you know, if there is something in that, yeah. I'd be interested. But yeah, we'll have plenty.
Yeah, we just need to be offering the players something, and I think consistency is something that they really need, because they've not had it this entire season. It's just been so shaky. It's been all over the place. And so wherever we are next season, like, if we want to retain players, we need to be offering them some kind of plan and just some kind of trustworthy figures that are going to be leading the way. And yeah, just not sort of chopping and changing everything every couple of months. And yeah,
it's not great, is it? Like, it's a bit sad to talk about.
Yeah, it's all doom and gloom, but like, yeah, I'd be so fed up if I was a Town player in a minute. apart from the fact that Neil Warnock came back, which honestly made so many of my dreams come true. Him being the manager at my first ever game, first ever trip to Wembley, having him back, I love it. And I think if we need anybody to just kind of like boost morale and show people how to get through a really rough patch like this, then he's an amazing person to do it. But he's not going to be there next season, and I hope that the chairman and his gang are spending this time like really lining up somebody solid that's going to be around for a bit, because we can't just keep going on as we have been going on.
No, well said. To be honest, I'd take relegation if it meant coming into next season we have new ownership, new ideas, new energy, new just like you say, I want someone there for the long term. With Town, it's always been boom or bust, mostly bust. But like, even when we do well, it's just, I mean, we all talked about doing a Barnsley and how we were worried about that. I'd say we've done worse than Barnsley in many respects. Like you say, 3 managers, 4 technically in one season. That's not the sign of a well-run club. And me and Tom keep saying on here, based on everything that's happened this season, we don't deserve to stay up. Of course, I want us to stay up, and even though it looks bleaker and bleaker as the games go by, we're still not out of it technically. So, it would be an absolute miracle if we do stay up. I think that would probably be one of Warnock's best ever achievements. And, I think, to be honest, out of all the managers we've had this season, I think he's the one I'd back the most to do it. But, it's not looking good. Sorry, this was meant to be a really silly podcast. We're talking about jam, and now we're talking about what a jam the club is in. But we'll move on because it's time for You're the Boss. So, the lineup against Bristol was 4-2-3-1. So Thomas Vaslik returned into the nets, had a good game. And then your back four was Pearson, Lees, Hellick and Ruffles. In the 2, you had Hogg and Radoni. And then your 3 were Hungbo, Diarra and Jackson. And you had Danny Ward up front. Francine, if you were in charge on Saturday, well, we do know you're going to the Hawthorns, and given everything that's happened to Town this season, I'm not ruling out you being in charge on Saturday. But what would you do for this game? What changes will you make?
Well, it's rough, isn't it? Because we just don't have that much available at the minute. I mean, is Rhodes injured? Is that why he wasn't playing in?
Yeah, I think he's had a bit of an illness. It's kind of I've just heard illness. I'm not really sure. It's a bit of a
you never
mystery
know with illness. Yeah. And then High's got a double fracture in his wrist, hasn't he? So we're not playing High. So I mean, I'd probably just keep it as is. I mean, I don't think it's a terrible setup. And I mean, and again, I keep talking about consistency. So maybe going into this game with the team that managed to hold a point is not a bad way to start against West Brom. But we just need a bit of striking power, and we need a bit of forward push. We just don't have any sort of action in that area at the minute. There's no threat from our forwards, so I don't know how to turn Danny Ward up a bit, or I don't know if, maybe starting Waghorn and just letting Wardy chomp at the bit for a while and then getting him on later on. Yeah, sorry, it's not the most inspired structure here, but it's just tough, isn't it? Like just don't feel like we have mad amounts of options with the injuries that we've got. It's such a shame that Headley's out as well at the minute.
Yeah.
Could really do with him.
I'm struggling too, to be honest. I think I'm probably with you. Like, just don't. Maybe we should have a bit of consistency. I think when it is, and again, hate to be bleak, but when it is mathematically important, when it's confirmed, when we've got the R next to our name, I would like to see the players who are more likely to stay. So obviously Jackson for me isn't a left winger. He played left wing on, last night, but like see him get some more like Tyree Simpson, those type of players, maybe just play them and getting some experience for next season. So maybe give them a run out. But again, as subs, I think I'm with you. Don't change a team that kept a clean sheet, really. And then just maybe if it's 0-0, 60 minutes gone, which is a big if with Town at the moment this season. But if it is that case, maybe you just risk it. Knockout missed out with I think it was a family issue. If he's available for Saturday, someone for half an hour, I think who could, maybe pop up with something. So it's hard to say though.
Yeah.
It's hard because you can just tell like the commentary game for me like played all right, and then Hellick makes that mistake, and the confidence in them all is just shot. So
that's it.
Really hard
it takes so little to rattle them at the minute as well, and it's and I mean I think Backlick, is that how you say it? I've never said that out loud before. I've just realised. Vachlik?
No, I think it's Matt told me off. Apparently, it's Vaslik, but I wanted
Vaslik.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay, Vaslik. I think he's doing. He did really well this week, but I think I'm missing Nichols. I'm missing the kind of the absolute bollocking that he gives to the entire back line all the time. I think that's been really helpful. So if he was fit, I'd love to see him back in position there. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, we're just in a bit of a shaky state at the minute, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really are. What would be your score prediction for this one then?
I predict what I think it will be is 2-0 West Brom. But we just don't know. We've got no idea. I'd love to come away with a point. I really, really would love to come away with a point. And it's not beyond the realms of possibility at all. But I just think home turf for them. I think they'll probably do us doom and gloom again.
I'm hoping, and again, because you're going to the game, be a shame if you saw a defeat. I hope it's a bit like do you remember the game in lockdown against Swansea, the 4-1, where they're in really good form and we just happened to randomly win? I don't think anyone was expecting it. I'm going to say 4-1 Town. I mean, I don't believe that. I think they'll beat us probably 3-0.
I love that.
But I'm just going to say 4-1 Town. Like I think Hungbo's just going to have like 10 minutes where he's just like, he's playing hero ball. It's just incredible.
I hope so.
We just catch him cold.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love that. And again, it's just one of those games, isn't it? Like it could. You don't know what kind of a mindset each one of the players is going to turn up with against this specific manager, and especially if they've had Neil Warnock in the changing room, like getting into him about him. But yeah, it could. We could welcome away with something, and I really hope we do. I'd love to see a score, if I'm honest, for the weekend. But coming away, I mean, to 3 points. If we get 3 points at the weekend, then it's back on, isn't it?
It is back on. Yeah.
All right,
maybe
let's do that then. 4-1. I'm in. Sold.
4-1. Nice. I've got us believing. I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it? I mean, even if we lose the game, I'd love it. Even if we just like scored first, just because it gives some Town fans something. But yeah, we'll see. I'll stop being miserable. But before we go, we normally do an amazing elbow or a Aquinas question, but with it being International Women's Day, and to be honest, you may have seen as we're recording tonight, but the Huddersfield Town women's players, were tweeting about the club and its support for the team, the men's team, I should say. So just let us know. We have seen that. We have contacted some of the players, and we'll be, watch the space basically about some stuff. But you may have seen as well that we've been doing a female fan survey, so that's still out, and it's going to close on the 31st of March. So if you're a female fan and you go to the games, or you're a Town fan, really appreciate that if you could fill that in. That's our pinned tweet on our Twitter account. But Francine, I wanted to ask you just about your kind of experience as a female fan. Following Town in 2023, because we've not published the results of the survey yet, but I was quite surprised that some of the comments we got about sexist behaviour that people have witnessed or experienced, and I just wanted to, but at the same time I was also encouraged by people who didn't have to see that, so I just wanted to say what's your experience been like as a Town fan?
I think I've had the whole breadth of experiences of being a woman and being a Town fan. I think there's so many different situations that you find yourself in when you go to football games. So, you go to your home games, you go to away games, but there's all of the bits and pieces in between that. There's the trains to and from, there's the pub before and after, there's conversations with random people as you walk into the ground. There's a lot of different spaces where things can happen. And I think if I'm talking about when I'm actually in the Town ground and I'm sat in my seat in Kilnabank that I've had for however many years, surrounded by these people that I've known for however many years, I'm fine. I'm not hearing sexist language. I'm not hearing abusive language towards me or any of the many, many other women of multiple generations that sit around me and that I've grown up around. But I live in London and I get trains up and down to the games, mostly with a bunch of friends, but definitely with a lot of very drunk football fans from other clubs. And I've had multiple issues in those scenarios. I've had comments directed at me. And I mean, when I say comments directed at me, it's not necessarily really overtly sexist stuff. It can just be what is considered harassment. So harassment doesn't have to be, someone grabbing you or something like that. It can be intimidation. It can be condescension. So, it can be just somebody coming up to me and asking which one of the guys I'm with is my boyfriend, and then trying to start a conversation there when I've just been sat happily chatting about how miserable Huddersfield Town situation is at the minute with all of my friends for the last hour or whatever. Or, I can spend 20 minutes chatting away with somebody about the ins and outs of this game that I've, for some reason, decided to dedicate so much of my life to, just to be told that I know a lot for a woman at the end of it. These are all sort of microaggressions that just build up and make people not want to put themselves into those situations. It makes people not want to travel to and from games. And I've seen, again, I tend to travel with people when I go to these things, but I've seen people completely unrelated, women completely unrelated to football games, get onto trains and just be hounded by piles of drunken people just because she's present in their space, and they think that because they've been stood in a stand shouting for the entire afternoon and drinking cheap lager that she's fair game and that they can just start going off on her. And those situations as well are ones that I will not put up with, that none of my friends will put up with. So we'll step in, we'll try and help people, and then you're putting yourself into another space where you're at risk of getting abusive language thrown at you, abusive behavior thrown at you. So these are the bits that the club can't monitor, and that they can't necessarily have stewards and actions in place to be able to help out with. And it's the same in the pub before and after as well, So it's tricky. When you've been following the game for as long as I have, which isn't that long, I've been 21 years old and that, but I've come across a lot of things. I've been in a lot of situations that have been really unpleasant. But most of it happens outside of the ground. So it's difficult to have it monitored and to put actions in place to protect people. But
And
I mean,
sorry, I was just going to say, not in, but as someone, who considers themselves an ally, and I'm sure people listening, they unfortunately have seen that stuff, happen in situations. It's not so much of a case you need a man to come and save you or anything like that, but I suppose as someone who is an ally who wants to help in that situation, is there anything you could suggest that would make that better? Or again, it's not so much someone having to come and save the day, because unfortunately you've had to deal with it on numerous occasions, but is there anything people could do to support women?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really easy thing that every single person that goes to football can do, and it's just keep an eye on your mates. And if your mates are being awful, tell them off. Just pull them out of the situation, take them somewhere else, and realize that you being a friend of that person makes you responsible for their behavior as they are responsible for their behavior. You can be the person in that situation that cools it down and that stops something horrible from happening. So yeah, if your drunken mate is getting at someone, move them, take them away. You don't even have to speak to the victim in that situation. You don't have to try and make things better. Just shift your pal, and give them a dressing down and a talking to, however you are able to do that as their friend. But yeah, it's not my job as a woman. It's not your job as someone traveling home from a football game to try and solve all of this, but it is our responsibility to keep an eye on the people that we know and the people that are around us, and make sure that they're treating people respectfully and creating, just maintaining safe ways for people to get to and from games and to experience the game. And this isn't just, it is especially for women, because so much happens in these spaces, and there is a lot of attention that needs to be paid to make sure that these situations get better. But it's the same for guys as well, just being in those situations and riling each other up when it's, we've seen awful things this week with fans fighting. So it's, that whole situation and that whole space needs to be made so much safer for everybody. But women, unfortunately, tend to be on the receiving end of most of it. So, yeah. But yeah, that would be my one thing. And I think it's all very well and good on International Women's Day that people are going online and they're like, oh yeah, celebrating these great women in my life. It's like, cool, but how would you feel if they were getting a train home from the game and some guy was pushing them into a corner and screaming at them? We shouldn't let anybody be getting into that situation. So yeah, let's just completely denormalize it and make it like the most horrific thing that somebody can possibly do, so that people are really discouraged from doing it.
Yeah, no, well said. And to be honest, I saw quite a few National Women's Day posts, which was, I think there's that meme of David Brent saying, "How could I hate women? My mum's one." Also, there's other women who are inspirational that aren't your mum or your nan or anything like that. But yeah, you're spot on. Like it's not about a day. And before we get the comments, oh, what about International Men's Day? It's in November. Don't be one of those people. I'd like to think people who are like that don't listen to this podcast anyway. But yeah, well, no, that's great, Francine. Just before we go, is there anything you'd like to add? About what we've talked about, or anything you'd like to say to people who are listening?
Yeah, maybe just another sort of action that people can take is just, if you go to games with women, just ask them what their experiences have been like, and just ask how they are, how they feel, and if they feel like they can come to you if they have an issue, or if they feel like they know where they can go if they have an issue at any point. Again, not just at the game, and at any point throughout their day. Yeah, just start the conversation and make it feel normal and make it feel appropriate to ask questions, because if you do that, then you're looking out for your mates, and that's what we're all here to do at the end of the day. So yeah, I think we just need to kind of make it a really normal conversation, so that if you're in the pub after a game and something's happened during the game, as an example, let's say I was at the game with some friends, someone shouted something at me. I don't want to then go to the pub after the game, try and raise it with my friends, and then be like, "Oh, it's fine. It's just a bit of banter." It's not banter. Banter is not sexual harassment. So, yeah, just don't brush people's complaints and worries aside as banter when actually there's quite a lot that leads up to that moment, and there's a lot that needs unpacking. So yeah, talk to your friends. Look out for your friends and tell them off if they're doing dickheads.
No, well said. I mean, football's for everyone. So, like, I know they say that, but it's not my game. As as a white middle class man, like, it's not my game. It is for everyone. That's what makes it great. So, just from like my perspective, I'm sure Tom would be the same. Like, we want it to feel welcoming for everyone, because that's what makes football so great. That it is for everyone. So, yeah, like you say, don't be a dick. We'll end it there. But yeah, no, thank you, Francine. Thank you for talking about that. Yeah, if as I mentioned, we do have the survey. So if anything did kind of come up, or you heard anything, I would encourage you to fill that in, because the more kind of respondents we get, the better a picture it paints of what it is like to be a Huddersfield Town female fan. So that'd be great. So yeah, I think we've talked about it all today. We've talked about Town being crap. We've talked about that. We've talked about ducks the size of Jonathan Hogg. Hey, what can I say? That's what you get from this podcast. So yeah, that'll do it. So thanks to Francine for coming. Thanks to you all for listening. Thanks to Magic Rock for sponsoring us as always. Don't forget, you can get 10% off all online orders with the code AHTTC10. So yeah, use it or lose it. And Tom and I will be back to preview the next game. So David Wagner. We'll be talking about him a lot, I imagine. But ta-ta for now, and up the town.
So Town, play up, bring the car back to Huddersfield.